I am a trainer, and I will later be sending Julian some information for setting up office hours if any of the students want like a 15-minute one-on-one session with me or one of my teammates specifically about the Digital Scholar Lab. We're going to make those available a couple of times in October, November, and December.
Oh, well, thank you guys for that very much.
Thank you very much, Julian. And hi, everyone. I can kind of see you at the top of the screen, so it's nice to see you. So one question I have for all of you is, what do you know about digital humanities and text mining generally? I thought that a good way to kick off this broad introductory session would be perhaps to talk a little bit about the nature of text mining, what it is, and the types of results that you can get from using the various methodologies. And so I am not going to give you a full lecture on the fundamentals of text mining, but this is a slide set that I actually use when I teach the Intro to DH class at the University of Washington. And I will provide it to Julian after this session as a PDF, because there are some good links, some good information just to orient you to what you'll be doing in Gale Digital Scholar Lab, using Gale primary sources, and then ultimately building your digital story maps. So I will go through these slides briefly. As I said, this isn't going to be a lecture, but in terms of digital humanities, the nature of it is somewhat fluid, and I would say it depends on who you ask as to the answer that you'll get. So in your class, you're going to be looking specifically at text mining and data visualization. So you'll be using texts from newspapers, other resources, and taking that text to analyze its content either thematically or in other ways, so that you can begin to tell your narrative. There are other options in DH which might include mapping, creating digital editions of texts, creating virtual exhibits. And I know that you have links to some of the classes that I've taught in the past, and you can look at some student virtual exhibits there. So we have a high-level definition of what text mining actually is, that you can dig into and think about a little bit, but it's essentially the process of using computational analysis to look at collected, in this case, plain text documents. It's a very interdisciplinary field. You can see that, I'm an Egyptologist. I work with text mining 19th century journals. You're looking at media material. So it pulls in a lot of different fields and subspecialties using various methodologies to gain results. You may see various synonyms for text mining, for looking at this field. So if you do any reading around the subject and you see any of these synonyms, they're essentially talking about the same thing. So in terms of what you can do with text mining, you might find this slide helpful as you're thinking about some of your projects, how you might frame your research questions, for example, and how this framing can inform the tools that you want to use to answer your questions. The first one in particular, I know that Julian has mentioned that you will probably be using topic modeling, and this will essentially take a collection of words and identify thematic connections between those groups of words, and clustering does about the same thing. Both of those are available in the lab. We also have sentiment analysis. You can look at sentiment through your collections of documents. Network analysis is not currently available in the lab, but essentially you can build networks of different, say, correspondence or groups of occupational groups, that sort of thing, and see how they connect to each other. And then for building the story maps, you might want to think about using named entity recognition. So looking at things like place names, people's names, that sort of thing, how and where they appear in your texts. And then you can export that data to build your story maps with. So that's a few ideas of, how text mining can be used. And then what we'll be doing today is looking at how we go from a digitized, oops, it hasn't moved on. Here we go. How we go from a digitized primary source through to statistical output and visualization output via the raw plain text that you'll see in the digital lab. You'll see when we go through the lab that the workflow is implied as being somewhat linear, but as you will discover, it's more iterative and cyclical in nature. So you might find that you're repeating certain stages of the process again and again. For example, building your data sets or cleaning them. You keep doing that until you're happy with the results, then you go ahead and analyze it. We've got lots of these. I'll send those to you so you can take a look. But this might be pertinent to your class. So the types of text that you can mine. And these include the digitized texts, and you will be primarily focusing on these, I think. So you'll be using collections of newspapers from various sources. But there are also native digital texts. A lot of people analyze tweets, for example. You can download information from Twitter, analyze themes and trends, the same with Wikidata as well. So born digital material. Gosh, I'm one slide behind all the time, aren't I? Here we go. Sorry about that. So here are the digitized texts, the native texts, with some examples of them. This I will provide to you as well. All of these are clickable, but it gives you some ideas of where you can get texts from beyond the information that will be provided to you in class. A lot of this information is available in the format that you will want to be working with it in, i.e. plain text. And as you'll see in the lab, it's possible to upload this material into the platform and to analyze it. And then a few examples of how you can work with different languages, different libraries, and then out-of-the-box tools to create analyses, visualizations, that sort of thing. The out-of-the-box ones listed here are open source. So, if you are moved to do so, you can certainly go ahead and experiment with those. Voyant is probably one that I would recommend starting with if you want to pursue that. For this class, we'll be primarily looking at the digital Scholar Lab, which has been built and is provided by Gail. So that is a very high level and brief overview. I've got some of the sources and inspiration as well, if you wanted to dig into any more information. And Julian, if there are additional questions once students have seen this PDF, then I'm happy to supply additional readings if folks want to look at that.
Can you go back to where you have Project Gutenberg and all the external?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so in addition to these, so these are all, do you guys recognize most of these? So like Google Books, a lot of this you should. Hathi Trust or Hathi Trust, however you do it, is another book one. I'm going to just add a couple that I think are really important here. So this one, Internet Archive, you guys have already used, because remember how we did Thinking in Time, and I sent you guys a link. So you read that book in the Internet Archive. It's like archive.org. I just want to stop and point this out because this is a major thing not to overlook when you guys are doing research. And I have a personal account for newspapers.com. And let me get, I think it's like, I have to look for the login and password for you guys, but I have a login and password. It's, I think the login is like, or the password is like journalism 360. I'll pull it up in a second for you guys and I'll put it on the board. But newspapers.com is a huge collection of newspapers. Another is Chronicling America, which is the Library of Congress's massive newspaper collection. And then like if you guys go, so you guys see the library page where the trials are for the Gale collections or whatever. If you go to that search box, for example, and you type newspapers, whatever other collections the library has will kind of show up because a lot of them have newspaper in the name of the collection, okay, for those. And then there are, you know, if you're looking for photos or video or other kinds of digital assets for your digital storytelling, like let's say you want to drop in a video into your digital map that you create, you know, you could probably find that on something like YouTube or on any number of sites. Now, some things you'll find have some kind of like coded protection, but just when we went over this, I wanted to add Chronicling America and newspapers.com are two major things that you guys are going to want to look at. And when Sarah talked about topic modeling, do you guys understand what that's about? Maybe Sarah, we should explain that. You know.
Yeah, and I can do that in the lab with a live example, if that works.
Okay, I mean, the essential thing is, I mean, she's going to explain it, but what you guys are used to, like when you Google things, what you're used to with like a search box is you come up with a keyword, right? And so let's say you're looking, you've got a digital newspaper archive and you've got 50 years or 20 years of newspaper stories, and you type in a keyword because you think it's going to help you find a hit, right? That'll help you find articles about whatever it is you're looking for. Okay, but that's one way of doing searching. And what she's talking about with all these other approaches is, let's say you want an alternative because are there, I mean, what do you guys think? Are there problems with just doing a keyword search for something? What would be the problems with finding information through the Google search box, especially when you're doing historical research? Yeah, you may miss the word, right? It may be misspelled. They may have used a different word in a different era that you hadn't thought about, right? What?
Not necessarily reliable sources.
Well, so let's say you're doing the search and you have, let's say you know you're going through the New York Times collection. So you know that everything that's going to come up is going to come up in an article. You're searching through New York Times articles for that word. It's just going to do that search for that keyword in the collection that you're looking at. So in that sense, you're not that worried. I mean, there could be issues with the sourcing of the collection itself, but you're not worried about that per se because you know what you're getting right there, what you see, you know what I mean? But another issue, how many of you guys have found that if you want to know something, let's say you're in an argument with people and you go to Google for an answer, your answers are going to be influenced by what you do a search for. You understand what I mean? If I decide that, like, you know, why is the coronavirus vaccine ineffective? And I put in a search in Google, why is the vaccine ineffective? Or why is the COVID vaccine harmful or dangerous? I'm going to get results that suggest that it's ineffective, harmful, or dangerous, right? So to some degree, the search box creates a bias. And for doing historical research, it's like the search box is like a straw hole. And you're looking into this vast universe, which is history, which is the past. And so what Sarah's going to explain to you are alternative ways of searching through old newspaper stories to find things that just using the search box may be a flawed approach. You guys understand what I'm saying? These are alternatives to just using the search box to find everything you need to do. It's almost like we're so trained to use Google as the way we seek information that it's like literally kind of out of the box thinking to say there may be other ways to retrieve information, right? So anyway, Sarah, I hope I wasn't interrupting too much, but I felt
No, not at all.
had that conversation.
Yeah, and you make some great points, Julian. I listened to a talk about 19th century murders, actually tracking them in newspapers, and the word clue is actually spelt C-L-E-W in many newspapers of that era. So if you're not specifically searching using the vernacular of the time, then the results you get are not going to be as broad as they could be. So developing an awareness, as you say, is important. I'll be able to share a few case studies, but I just wanted to point out this simple example of how a word cloud, which you probably you're all aware of, how it can be a powerful way of visualizing bias. And so this project was developed by a writer and cultural critic who was looking at representations, well, gender stereotype representations of male. And she did a word cloud for TV commercials for so-called boys' toys, and then the same for girls. And you can see that the results really stand out. The top, obviously, being the boy, the toys marketed to boys, the bottom to girls. So often choosing the right visualization can be a powerful thing. You can tell a powerful story if you frame it right. So I'm going to come out of my slides now, and I'll go back in to, let's have a look, Google Chrome, and we'll go into the Digital Scholar Lab. Let me just check I'm still logged in. So you all have access to the lab now, I assume. You have the links and the login, so you're able to access the platform.
You guys do that? You have the link? Let me, I've sent it to them, but let me send it to them again.
Okay, great.
You guys can open it. And while I'm at it, I'm going to give you guys the login for newspapers.com.
Great. And you will also all have logins to 7 additional Gale primary source archives. And they'll look something like this when you log into them. So this example is the Times Digital Archive, but you also have the Daily Mail, 19th century US newspapers. You've got American historical periodicals from the American Antiquarian Society. You've got 2 modules of political extremism and radicalism, and then this Times Digital Archive. One thing I wanted to point out to you, if you go into the archives themselves, rather than the Digital Scholar Lab, you'll notice that all of the archives have a learning center. And this is a great place for you to start off and to learn about the archive, to learn about the history of the archive and what's in it as well. And this is a great way for you to make some decisions about, what you're going to be searching for, but also to learn perhaps about biases in the archive, considering how and when they were built, what might be in the archives, what might be left out. There are also a few sample topics and searches as well. So you could experiment with some of these before you go into the lab. And a new feature that we have just introduced is the ability actually to search. If I search here, I'll search for mystery. You can search in Gale Primary Sources, and you will see that we've got 96,000 results. But what you can do once you've searched in Gale Primary Sources is you can click through and it will take you directly into the lab. It will carry over these search results into the lab. So, you can begin in Gale Primary Sources, get the contextual information, do your search, and then go over to the lab. That's one route that you can take. The other route that you can take is just to work in Gale Digital Scholar Lab itself. So you can do the same searches and you can build your data sets in the lab. When you arrive on the landing page, you'll see that there is contextual information about the workflow in the platform. So it begins with building your content sets. So that's the searching and curating process. And then it will, you'll move forward to cleaning the texts. And we'll talk a little bit about what cleaning is and the implications of it once we have a bit of material to work with. And then we've got the analysis portion, which is where you'll be working with, say, the topic modeling tool to look at some of the thematic content. An important thing that something you'll probably find valuable is the Learning Centre in the lab as well. So there are brief videos going through each stage of the process. So it will help support your work in the lab. You might find the voice in the videos familiar. But we also have sample projects that you can follow along with as well. So you can get a copy of the sample project, add it to your workspace, and then you can follow along and see how it was built as well. So another opportunity to orient yourself to the platform. I also recommend, and I always have my students download this particular piece of collateral. It's the end-to-end project outline. And what it is a PDF with blank spaces for you to fill in as you work, but it will provide you with the kind of structured scaffolding that you need to walk through a project in the lab. So as you're building your projects in class, you could download this PDF and just be guided along through the workflow. So that's the analysis template here that you can follow along with.
Hey, Sarah?
Yes.
Yeah, so I just sent them the link.
Yeah.
So just so they know where all this stuff is. Can you guys click on that link? And is this all through the Gale Digital Scholar Lab, Sarah?
Yes, I'm in the Gale Digital Scholar Lab now, yes.
So can we go back to what is their landing page for that? So
it should look like this.
Okay, so is everybody there? Can everybody kind of find their way there? And so you're saying these resources for the walkthrough are?
They are in the Learning Centre, which is right here. Visit the Learning Centre.
Okay. So let's go, you guys clicking on that now? And can we quickly review, you showed us a bunch of different functions there.
So we're now in the Learning Centre. And for each stage of the process, so build, clean, and analyze, there are breakdowns of each stage, and each of these pages will have an embedded video to watch. So you can work your way through each of these as you're building. You know, have a couple of windows open on your screen, because I think working hands-on is always a good way to reinforce the lessons. So information there. And then I also recommended the sample projects. You can see that we've got 3 of them. So Black America and the Law, The Rise of Electricity, and Food and Civility. And if we take a look again at Black America and the Law, what you can do once you get there is you click Get a Copy, and it will copy all of the content and the cleaning configurations that were used to build this project to your My Content Sets area, which you can see in the top menu here.
So do you understand why he's emphasizing cleaning so much, you guys? Because when we scan like a newspaper, you know, 50 years of a newspaper, whatever, there are a lot of textual errors. And so when you guys are, so we may have a collection of 50 years of a newspaper, but when you guys put your project together, you're going to want to narrow down what you're actually using and sharing to say, I'm going to do a requirement of for each team of 3, 30 newspaper articles. So that means if you're a team of 3, everybody's only responsible for 10 articles. But of those 10 articles, what you need to do is just as an exercise, is really more at this level, an exercise of learning how to do digital storytelling and best practices. I could have skipped this part, but thankfully, because I'm working with Sarah, she's pointed out what the right way to do digital storytelling is. So what you want to do, just to learn how to do digital storytelling the right way, is clean up the texts of the articles you get. And so that's what she's getting at with the cleanup stuff. Okay. So even though you're only doing 10 articles and those anomalies, those scanning mistakes probably won't matter at the scale that we're operating. You know, we're talking about searching years of newspapers and massive data research and stuff. And so these are skills you'll want to have to be able to do digital storytelling projects in the future. Okay. Is that pretty much accurate, you think, Sarah?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So has everyone managed to log in and find the Learning Center? Hopefully so. And of course, any issues, let me know.
And so what you can see, and I'll create rubrics for this, but what you'll see is she has a tab for clean. So what Sarah does, she teaches this at a really professional level with digital storytelling classes where really the entire class is focused just on digital storytelling. We're taking on media history, that's kind of our focus. But what she's done is she's created rubrics to say, here's basically how you need to show that you're cleaning up data. So I'll give you guys some rules. And Sarah, you were explaining to me like essentially what showing that you've cleaned up the data means, right? Do you want to explain that briefly?
Yes. So what we can do is look at one of my classes, the one I just taught, and we can take a look at some of the student work to see the process that they went through to clean their data. So this is a great example here, actually, of some of the choices that they made in the primary sources, in the primary source text, to clean their data. I will say that if you have a content set, say, of 10,000 documents, if you build something that big, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to go in and clean every single word in the content set. That's you know, probably out of scope for a semester's work. So it's always worth thinking about an optimal size for your content set. I think Julian just mentioned 10 documents each, something like that. And at that point, it would be possible to go in and perhaps do some hands-on cleaning, to clean them manually. In the lab, you can clean programmatically. And this is what that might look like. So for example, this was a project about King Tut. So obviously Egypt appears often, but it's often misrecognized by the engine that generates the text. And you can see that the G and the Y are recognized as an A and I. So the students went in and manually corrected that one. They decided it was a significant word. And there are other examples here of things which were recurrently misspelled. And so they were able to go in and clean those up. And where that happens in the lab is actually in the top menu here. You can see we've got clean. If we go into clean, and I think it's, here we go. So this is that section that we were just looking at in the class. They would type in the incorrect word and then they would correct it, what they'd want to replace it with. There are ways to make sure, to do this process fairly swiftly. A good thing to consider are the stop words. So these are the most common words in the English language, and maybe they're ones that you're not interested in including in your analysis. You know, you might not want to include the, that sort of thing. So we've provided a list of those common words that might not be of interest to you. If you wanted to edit this, if say you wanted to include words like afterwards, for example, you can simply go in and edit the stop word list. So you have a lot of granular control over your clean configurations. And then there are other options for removing things like the front matter, the back matter, that sort of thing. If you're working primarily with newspapers, perhaps this isn't going to be as relevant to you. You can also remove punctuation as well. Why you might want to do this is certain tools work in different ways in generating the results. And I have a couple of crib sheets that I can share so that it will give you the framework to decide whether or not you want to include or exclude punctuation. But once you've made your choices and you've decided what replacements you want to use, at that point you can save your configuration and you can take it forward to apply to some of the data sets that you've built. When I say data sets, they look something like this. So these are ones that I have been building over time. And I actually built a data set after, sorry, my internet's slow. After I first spoke with Julian, and I wonder if it's actually logged me out. That might be an issue. Let's have a look.
They're reading Helen Jewett right now. So.
Oh, you are? Very good. Yes, it's logged me out. I will say that if you find that things aren't loading, just hit refresh on your browser, and it might be that you've been logged out. At the moment, there's a 20-minute log out scenario, which no user is very happy about, myself included. So it's something that we kind of have on our radar. So we're back in the My Content sets. And these are all the data sets that I've been working on. As you know, I'm an Egyptologist, so I've been looking at things like King Tut and the Illustrated London News, but also Helen Jewett. So I built two content sets using two different archives. I built one using fiction, so novels, the American Fiction Archive. And this is what the documents look like. So I ended up with 51 documents, as you can see. And Julian mentioned that, it's important to get a sense of what the OCR actually looks like. So the lab provides a pathway for you to do that. So you can look at the original scan of the document, so the fatal secret, and then you can see what the OCR, the optical character recognition output actually looks like. So this is how the machine has interpreted that initial scan. And you can see that there are a few problems with it.
Sure.
And this is where that cleaning process comes into play.
Let's see how messy that is. Yeah. By the way, Sarah, maybe we should say, because they might be confused, the murder of Helen Jewett was a real event and a news story, right? So what
Yes.
do you think of the fact that Sarah did a search for novels and fiction? Does that make sense to you all? So in other words, this was such a big crime story that she was able to find dozens or hundreds of fictionalized things about the murder because it was such an object of fascination for audiences of the 19th century that dozens of people wrote fiction about it. So is that pretty much what you found?
It is. Yeah, and I was interested in comparing the newspaper reporting. So you can see here that these are all this is the newspaper reporting, and I used the 19th century US newspapers for this purpose, and I got 160 documents. You can see the archives used here, and you have access to this archive in class as well. But then I thought it would be interesting to compare this, the newspaper reporting with fictionalized reporting. So you can see, or fictional accounts. So you can see here that I did the same search in the American Fiction Archive as well. So that's one way that you can build multiple content sets using a range of different archives and perhaps do some comparisons between each of them.
Sarah, this may be a good opportunity to really illustrate what we mean by topic modeling and how it's different than keyword searching.
Yes, okay. So the lab has got 6 analysis tools embedded in it. And you don't need to have any prior experience. You don't need to know any code. You don't need to use the command line. Everything is available in the lab for you to work with. These are the 6 tools that are available, and you can see that one of them is actually topic modeling. We have these little call out light bulbs here, and it will take you immediately to the page in the Learning Center. If you're confused or you want more information, click the light bulb and it will give you an overview of what's going on, what you're looking at. So for topic modeling, what it essentially does, let's have a look.
So what you guys could do is, let's say you had a topic that wasn't in Gale or wasn't in Redix, but you're able to go to, there's the login for newspapers.com or Chronicling America. You could, in theory, create your own scan. If you can get just the raw, characters, the letters, and the text, you can then import it into the Digital Scholars Lab. And then,
well,
what?
There's a proviso there. So at the moment, the lab, you can import plain text only into the lab, so TXT files. So if you do get scans from another resource, there are a couple of options available to you. So you can use an open source an open source OCR engine to create your own plain text. I can give you a list of ones that you can create your own plain text and then import that text into the lab. Or you can manually transcribe. So you can open the image and you can open a plain text document using a text editor. All of your computers will have a text editor, and then you just type the transcription into it, save it and upload it. So those are the two options available to you. At the moment, you can't upload PDFs, for example, into the lab and have our engine do it for you. So
Right. If you have Adobe Acrobat Preview, right? What's called there's a way to do an OCR in Adobe Acrobat. If you have a bunch of you got, well, if you're in like journalism, you should have a subscription to the Adobe Creative Suite, and then that, right, Sarah, that would work if they have you can't do it with the free Adobe Acrobat, but if you have what is it called, Adobe Acrobat Preview or whatever the one that you pay for is.
it's Pro, yeah, it's
Acrobat Pro.
that Pro, right?
That would work,
Right.
right?
Well, you'd have to copy all of the text and then paste it into a plain text document.
Right.
So that would be one pathway.
And that's where the cleanup issues would come in, because it's going to end up creating mistakes, particularly with 19th century text or whatever. But that would be a way for you to go beyond just what you can directly import from Gale into another source. You'd have to convert it into raw text and then import it into the system.
Yeah, and I'll mention the office hours again that Anne highlighted. You know, if anyone wants to join and have a bit of hands-on help, then I'm very happy to do that. So bear that in mind.
Are you guys following all this, by the way? Have I lost anybody here? Have we lost anyone? It's pretty clear. This is the born digital native generation.
Yes, and I'm mindful of the fact that the demo that I'm doing at the moment is a little bit bitty. I'm not giving you the full flow from start to finish. And so Julian did ask me to record a walkthrough of the platform where I search and build a content set, clean it, and then analyze it. So I will share a YouTube video with you if you wanted to watch an end-to-end workflow. If that's helpful, I'll get that to you this week. So topic modeling. Let's take a look at this tool. So once you've built a content set, this is actually a content set that I built using the Illustrated London News archaeological reporting in the 1920s. And what I want to do is to go into a specific run of the topic model tool that I used. And I was interested in just seeing some of the themes that appeared in this particular decade of reporting. So when you first run topic modeling, what you'll see is a list of topics, and they will be numbered topic 0, topic 1, topic 2, topic 3, topic 4, etc. And this is what is known as a qualitative tool, in that the scholar or student has to decide themselves what the connection between the words are. So the words in this particular topic were bull, linen, body, red, bulls, mummified, animal, blood. And I renamed the topic to animals and mummification. There's another really good one here. If we take a look at this one, we say initially it was called topic 13. I looked at the words that were in it. So tomb, gold, Tutankhamun, Carter, king, mummy. And I decided that the connection was Tut's tomb. And so I renamed it. Here's another one. So air, flight, aeroplane, new car, speed. It's currently called topic 3. So for the sake of this class, I'll just call it airlines. I know
So
that's
all the computer knows is that these words keep showing up together. These are
right.
the top frequencies of words and clusters, but it doesn't know what topic that is. It doesn't know what theme that is. And if you go lower down, I think it gives you what, like 100 topics usually is the typical thing.
Well, you can define how many topics and how many words per topic that you want. So you have a lot of control over over how much is displayed. I would suggest that you start with the defaults, which is 10 topics and 10 words per topic. See what comes up. If you want more, once you've got used to the workflow, then start playing with those parameters a bit. You might find that 100 topics is too many. It's just overwhelming. I quite like 20 to 40 topics, depending on how big my content set is. But it might suggest connections that you previously were unaware of. So, for example, if you have 10,000 documents and you run a topic modeling analysis and you didn't know that there were any documents related to, say, the Bronze Age, prehistory, ivory, etc., you'll see that these are all grouped together. And then you can think, well, you know, I'm interested in exploring this a little bit more. And so here is that topic. And what you can do is then, if I'm interested in ivory, for example, I can go in, there are 12 documents, and I can take a look at those specific documents and I can learn more about them. So topic modeling is a bit of a pathway into your data. You might not be a domain expert, you might not know much about the content set that you're building, but these tools, especially topic modeling, will give you some hints about things you might be interested in exploring a little further. So it's kind of an exploratory analytic tool in that sense. And then what you can do for your story maps, for your digital exhibits that you are going to be building, you've got your results, you've got the topic modeling visualization that you've built, and you can download it. So you click download and you can download it in a variety of image formats, take it outside of the lab, and then you can upload it either into Story Maps or ArcGIS or whichever platform you end up using to build your digital exhibit. And then write your narrative assessment of what you've learned, if anything, from this topic model. Sometimes the results will be less than stellar, which is, a bit disappointing. But at that point, I suggest you go back and fiddle with the parameters a bit, maybe expand the number of topics or contract them if it's too many.
Since this is a media history class, if you guys find that if you guys find, say, an early 20th century or mid 20th century topic, and what you guys find is there's really good radio or photos or, video, like film stuff, that really helps you tell an interesting digital story, that's totally fine. I think it's really great to have this resource of these newspaper collections, and it's a great place to start, no matter which topic and what era you choose. But you shouldn't feel discouraged from finding great images, great video, any other or great radio clips from telling your story.
Yeah, and on that note, I know that you've shared links to some of the story maps that my students have built, for example. But what I wanted to do is to show you the back end of this story map, so you get a sense of what it looks like and what you can upload. So this is the back end of a story map. And you can see that, as Julian is saying, you can upload an image, you can paste in a link to videos, so URL to your media, you can add your credit and caption, and then your narrative as well. So you have a lot of granular control over the type of content that you add into your story map. It needn't just be a static image. And the same with timelines as well. So Timeline.js is built by the same people as story maps, and you can see that the addition is that you actually have the timeline embedded in the bottom. The difference in the back end is that this timeline is actually just built on a Google Sheet. So they provide you with a template, and then you can see that this is where you would be pasting in your media links. You might be adding in your images, the headlines and text, etc. And this is how that timeline is generated. So the back end is pretty straightforward. Once you've collected together all of your collateral, whether it's text, image, video, whatever, the building of the story map is straightforward. Again, no coding required. You've mentioned ArcGIS as well, Julian, as an option, and I think there's a little more layer of complexity for that, but again, pretty user friendly, and a lot of supporting material to help you build it.
Yeah, one of the advantages of ArcGIS is it's almost like a web builder, like the way Wix or WordPress is. You guys know what I mean by web builder? Like a web, it's something that enables you to create a website. These are really, when you try to import the Night Lab stuff that she's showing you here into, say, Wix or whatever, it doesn't integrate very well. They're good as freestanding things, and for this class, that's fine. You know, we're not getting into the weeds, but if you do want something that functions more like a full-fledged website with menus, and you know, maybe you want to do a timeline and a map or something like that, or different layers of content, ArcGIS is going to be a better platform for you. And like she's suggesting, you know, the PhDs in the geography department are teaching kindergartners how to use ArcGIS. So it's not, you're going to find that you're going to end up spending, I mean, if you hit a glitch, it can be very time consuming with any software, right? But essentially, you're going to find that you're spending way more time doing the research and finding the good material than you are just pasting it into the spreadsheet like that. Right, Sarah, is that pretty much?
Yeah. I mean, all of these have a little bit of a learning curve, but you know, as you say, I think ArcGIS is probably more complex than StoryMap or Timeline, but it has the advantage of you know, being able to be displayed readily and interacted with. The final thing I want to show you in the lab is where you go to upload your material, and you'll be looking at the build link in the top menu. So the search field and the advanced search as well are going to search in the 7 Gale primary source archives that you will be working with in class, that you have access to in class. I always recommend going into advanced search if you want to learn a little bit about some of the parameters, what they mean. You know, some of they're called Boolean search terms, but you know, the use of and or not, nesting, etc. So guidance on how to search effectively in the archives. So that contextual information is available in advanced search. If you are working outside of the lab, if you've found documents that you've got plain text from, this is where you would drag it into the lab. So you can drag or drop your plain text, or you can browse your local machine and upload them. We also have a text entry box as well. If you felt moved to type directly into the lab, that's an option as well. The metadata, which is the data about the document that you are working with, the metadata is very important for generating analysis results, and there's information about why it's important here. You can see that some of the tools go looking for, say, the publication date, because the visualization is over time. topic modeling just needs the text, n-grams, the text, etc. But you know, things to bear in mind as you're uploading your information. If you have a lot of documents that you want to bulk upload, we do provide a pathway for doing that. So these are some of the documents that I've uploaded over time. I uploaded all of the presidential speeches, for example. You can see them all here, and I added a bit of metadata. But what you can do is to bulk upload metadata if you have a lot of documents. So that might be something that you decide you want to do, but it might be out of scope for your class as well.
It would be like your metadata would be the subject headings that you give your stuff. So,
Right.
so that other people could search whatever you've collected. Is that pretty much
Right. Yeah, so these are the metadata fields, so author, publication title, document type, etc. So it populates these fields here.
We want to pause and ask them if they have any questions, Sarah?
Yes, I'm sure there are plenty of questions.
Have any of you guys figured out what your topic you're thinking about? If you don't have any sort of general questions, maybe if there's something you're thinking about, problems you think you may run into, or where, you know, did any of you guys get a chance to dig around a little bit and explore yet? No? Okay. Does anyone know a topic yet that you're interested in? Yeah.
Are doing Nellie Bly.
Oh, okay.
We're thinking about doing that. We kind of just figured out our curriculum.
So I guess I would recommend a couple of things with that to get you started. Nellie Bly is sort of the tip of the iceberg. A lot of people, because Nellie Bly is interesting. I mean, like, I think like in journalism now, I would say 80% of our students it's turning out now are women. And Nellie Bly, certainly over the last, like more and more over the years I've taught, has become a really appealing figure because she's a really early 19th century reporter. She was incredibly daring, right? So one of the books we will read when we get there, which is about, it's right around the corner, it's a couple of weeks, is this book about stunt girls. So Nellie Bly faked being crazy and ended up getting locked in a Blackwell's lunatic asylum where they locked up a lot of wives that were quote unquote misbehaving. And then Nellie Bly had a little bit of trouble getting out, but she did this expose, right, about the terrible conditions. Well, so this book called Stunt Girls, about all the women that did this in that era, came out last year. It wasn't the only book about this that's come out, but there are a lot of other interesting people. And one thing that I showed you, remember, Sarah, I showed you the fortune telling.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. So there's a web page that one of my colleagues in journalism history created about a series where the guy went undercover and interviewed all the gypsy fortune teller women that were around New York City at the time to find out all the fraud and scams they were doing. And I'll share that web page, but one of the advantages of that is it says all of this research came from this newspaper during this period. So right there, you guys have your data set. So if you wanted to do it about the undercover, now the opening story, the one that I really have you guys read for that week, is about a woman who went undercover in like the 1880s to do it about abortion and about going to you know, doctors to be able to get that procedure. So again, that's one where we probably could get the newspaper stories, and rather than just the book chapter that this woman wrote, you guys could create a digital project about that. So, you know, Nellie Bly could be a framing in a way for another stunt girl or a series of stunt girls. So there's a lot you could do with that. I think that's a great topic. And, you know, and it's like, we're already getting into the granular stuff before you guys have thought out your topic of like what tools you would use, like the topic modeling and stuff like that, just so that you're equipped when you do it. But, you know, you guys have still a lot of thought process to go through that we'll talk about of, well, what do I want to do it about? And where is there a there? Can I find good newspaper sources or good media sources for telling a good story? So does anyone have any other questions or topics that interest you? Anyone interested in the world wars, 20th century stuff? Yeah.
So with Katie and America's in a Heart, for this one.
What is it?
America is in the Heart by Carlos Peterson. And I was just talking about the experience in America.
Okay. So I guess, I mean, we have at the UH library a collection of Filipino newspapers that was from the 1930s.
Yeah.
So if you can find, you can use that book and that experience as kind of like a jumping off point for topics that they're raising about the Filipino experience. And then I know there's that archive because one of the graduate students last semester started to explore the Filipino American paper from the 1930s.
Yeah. Are we supposed to come up with one hypothesis that would be like the foundation, not just a topic, but like a hypothesis?
You need, what you want to do is you want to come up with a question that you can answer. And then you want to, but ultimately the answer should be, and Sarah, this is essentially what you did too, in a way, right? Is the answer can be a story that you tell by putting together different sources that you find. So, but the idea of coming up with a research question is probably going to be helpful for us because it will focus you on something to investigate and find out about. And then the answer can be a story. Does that make sense?
But it's still like a quantitative answer, right? Like a timeline.
I mean, a quantitative answer would be literally a numerical, like so many people believe this, so many people believe that, or something like that. You don't want quantitative in that sense. You want the stuff, you want the story that you're telling. And, you know, you want it to be fact-based, and you also, we're doing media history, right? So you ultimately, you want to be able to give some insight into, you know, like if you're gonna find the Filipino newspaper collection that we have at UH, you're gonna want it to offer some insight into, say, for example, the relation, something about the paper, like, did the paper create a community? Did the paper reflect the community?
What just stood out to me, which it was based on out of my interest, was that Carlos Peterson, who basically like a socialist group of Filipinos. I was like, it's basically like a social movement against like the American government and like the Americans like criminalized for just like writing the book America's in the Heart. So I just thought that was interesting. Like the working for this program.
Yeah, I mean, I would maybe, you need to focus it about on the media.
Yeah.
And so if you do it on this one guy's autobiography, it would be a bit off topic. But, you know, if you're interested in the presence of socialism or the way, like one thing you could look at is how it was dealt with in local Filipino American newspapers here.
Yeah.
You know, like was the paper that was published in Hawaii in the 1930s for Filipino Americans, was it sympathetic to the socialists? Was he here? Was Carlos here?
Yeah.
So like how he had to have had some kind of relationship with the Filipino American paper. Either he got along with them or he didn't, or there was antagonism. And so that would be something to investigate, you know. So you want to link it in that way, because also that would give you, otherwise you don't have source material necessarily. You have his book, but you don't have other contemporaneous material.
So just looking to the media during that.
Yeah, whatever sourcing you can find. So, you know, okay. So, sir, did you have, I just wanted to take a break to see if they had any questions.
Yeah.
You have,
Yeah. I think I'll stop sharing for now. So what I'll provide are the slides with the overview of, you know, what text mining is and the other data sets that I shared. And I'll add on Chronicling America and newspapers.com to the PDF. So they're included in that list. And then the walkthrough as well. I will say that in my experience, as students develop their projects, you know, they do identify an initial research question, but often that research question evolves a little bit as you begin to gather your data. You might find that you need to just tweak it a little bit based on the information that you ultimately find. So I would say that's a normal part of any academics process and just something to be aware of. But you know, Anne and I are available as resources for you over the course of the semester. So please don't hesitate to reach out if we can be of any help. We're happy to do it.
so both of these guys, Anne and Sarah, have been incredibly helpful to me in terms of learning this stuff. So I'm going to definitely take advantage of their offer to help. Thank you so much, Sarah. And I hope it's been okay. With your permission, I always have the Zoom sessions. It's like, I think, did it say that it was recording when you got on?
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sorry it was so bitty.
Yeah, so I want to share it with the other journalism faculty to say, hey, this is what, there was some debate yesterday about what digital storytelling is and what it means. And so I think, this session gave a pretty good idea of what that's about.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's a very engaging way to work with data, to tell your story in an interactive way. You're essentially doing public scholarship, and that's a powerful thing, I think.
I like that, Sarah, of all the stuff. And had I just shared my syllabus? Is that where you got Helen Jewett? So
initially, I think, yeah, you mentioned that a little while ago. So. Yeah.
So Sarah has a very imaginative approach to topics. She always finds, I think, really fascinating and fun ones. And she zeroed in on Helen Jewett pretty quickly. So maybe the word murder leaped out at you.
Maybe, but do remember Clue, CLEW.
Okay, well, thank you very much to both of you guys. And you've been very patient sitting there like the sage. I've talked with Anne and I can tell you she has a lot of really valuable information. She's been nice and stayed quiet and let the rest of us talk this time, but she's also an extraordinary resource. So thank you both for coming.
Thanks. Yeah, see you soon. Okay, bye.
So I guess oops, okay, that is wrong. I was gonna say, well, that's what I guess you get when you say thank you very much for coming.